everyone, my name is Molly, and I'm 16 years old. Tell me, do you get along with your older brothers and sisters? Do they ever bully you? My brother Matthew never left me alone for even a minute. But one day, something happened that turned him into a completely different person. Do you want to hear what made him change? Then subscribe to the channel and don't miss my amazing story. My brother Matthew had always been cool and brave. He played football, skated, wrestled, and wasn't afraid of anything. I was the complete opposite of him. Everything terrified me. I was a coward in the truest sense of the word. I was afraid of heights, spiders, the dark, and just about everything else. More than that, I was very unsure of myself and shy. Of course, I was very upset about it all, but I simply couldn't change myself and become as fearless as my brother. But then something happened that made Matthew a real hero. That day, Matthew and I were walking home from school. We were chatting merrily and discussing some fun moments that had happened earlier that day during a break. All of a sudden, we heard the screech of brakes and a terrible crash. My brother and I looked at each other and ran to find out what happened. People were already gathering around the corner. They were looking at a car that had crashed into a tree. Suddenly, smoke started coming out of the car. The situation was quickly becoming dangerous because there were still people inside and they were clearly unconscious. Everyone started to move away from the smoking car and no one wanted to risk helping those in need. I was scared too. Suddenly, my brother threw off his backpack and ran to the car. "Matthew, stop! What are you doing?" I asked, startled. But my brother didn't hear me. He was too busy pulling people out of the car. The smoke was getting stronger and the car was about to catch fire. But Matthew ignored the danger and acted very quickly. He first pulled out the passenger and then the driver. When they were safe, the crowd applauded my brother. He had done a really brave thing. He woke up the next morning a celebrity. Someone from the crowd had filmed his heroic act on his phone and posted the video on the internet. People immediately started talking about Matthew, and he even got some fans. The video with him very quickly went viral, and one day, reporters even came to our school to interview him. All the media were writing about my brother, and at the end of the month, the mayor of our town even personally thanked him for his courage. Long story short, my brother became a real star at school. The teachers made an example of him, all the girls wanted to date him, and all the guys invited him to their parties. Unsurprisingly, Matthew soon got a swollen head. He started to act like a cocky, spoiled brat. He changed very quickly, and soon I could no longer recognize him. But the worst part was that my brother started to make fun of me. He laughed at my indecisiveness and made sure to do it in front of other people. It made me feel awful. And the more it went on, the more hurtful his jokes got. One day we had to climb a rope in gym class. It seemed like an easy task to me, so I quickly climbed to the very top and was hanging under the ceiling. However, as soon as I looked down, I was immediately seized with true terror. I saw how high I had climbed and clung to the rope as tightly as I could. People were shouting down below, telling me to get down, but I simply couldn't relax my fingers. I had been hanging there for half an hour until someone brought a ladder and helped me down. The entire school watched me being rescued. I heard a lot of people laughing and saying that I was a disgrace to my brave brother. It was all very upsetting. I felt so angry with myself. Why was I such a coward? And what could I do about it? When my parents found out what had happened at school, they were, of course, very upset. And then my mom turned to Matthew and said, "You must help your sister overcome her fears. Teach her how to be brave." My brother immediately refused and said that he had no time to waste on me. But our mom insisted and said that it was his duty as an older brother to help me. So Matthew had to accept the responsibility. The next day, he brought me to the skate park with him. His friends were already waiting for him there, and they started to practice and do various tricks. I watched them with envy. I wanted to learn how to do those things as well. I told Matthew as much. He grinned and gave me a skateboard. It all seemed very dangerous to me, but I decided to conquer my fears anyway. I pushed off and started to skate. At first, everything was going well, but then the skateboard slipped from under my feet. I fell and hit myself hard. My brother's friends laughed, and he looked at me and smiled, pleased. "I knew you would fail," he said. The next time, Matthew suggested that I go to the recreation center with him. There was a very high rock climbing wall in it, and my brother said that he would teach me how to climb it. I thought it was a bad idea because I was afraid of heights, but he insisted and said I could do it. So I had to agree. We came to the center, and I saw that climbing wall. It looked extremely high and dangerous. I decided that I wouldn't climb it for anything, but then I saw that my brother's friends were watching and waiting for my decision. I thought I'd let Matthew down if I refused, and so I agreed. I started to climb the wall and got higher and higher. At first, everything was going well, until I looked down, that is. I had climbed so unbelievably high. That's when I got paralyzed with fear once again. I clung to the climbing holds of the wall and couldn't move either up or down. People started shouting from down below that I should just let go of the grips and get down using the safety rope. But I couldn't do it. That's when Matthew said very loudly that he would save me and started climbing up the wall. Very soon he got beside me and made me let go of the grips. We climbed down together. I felt very ashamed of myself for being such a coward, and my brother was very proud of himself for having saved me. At that moment, I realized that he had brought me to the climbing wall on purpose, so that he could show off his bravery and nobility to his friends. I felt wronged by my brother once again. He had never intended to help me become brave. I was sitting in my room feeling miserable. It frustrated me to no end that I couldn't overcome my fears, and that Matthew had just been using me to make himself look good. But then my thoughts were interrupted by my mother, who had come into my room. She said that Matthew had gone to the pool with some friends, and I could go with them too. I refused, but my mom said that if I kept acting like that, I would probably spend the rest of my life sitting in my room, afraid to come outside. I didn't want to argue with my mom anymore, so I grabbed my things and followed my brother to the pool. When I arrived, I immediately saw my brother with a group of his friends. They were chatting happily on the edge of the pool. I didn't want to join them, but they noticed me and started shouting for me to come closer to them. So I went over and sat down next to them. Matthew found out why I was there and suddenly came up with an idea. "Listen, Molly, you should jump into the water from the highest diving tower," he said cheerfully. I looked at it and realized that I would never dare to do such a thing. It was extremely high. So I immediately gave up on that crazy idea. But my brother tried to convince me to do it and said that he would even jump with me. But that didn't make me feel any better. I told Matthew that I simply couldn't do it, but there was no stopping my brother. He took my hand and pulled me up to the top of the tower. I resisted as hard as I could, but he was stronger. And then we were finally at the very top. I looked down and almost fainted. I'd never been so terrified. "Don't be afraid, come on. On the count of 3, said Matthew cheerfully. My knees started to shake. 1, we came to the edge of the platform. 2, we prepared to jump. 3, said Matthew. I stayed standing on the edge of the platform. I couldn't jump. I saw my brother plop into the water and was about to run back down when something caught my attention. Matthew still wasn't coming up. More than that, he was lying at the bottom of the pool, unmoving. I knew at once that something bad had happened. He must have hit his head and passed out. But he would drown like that. No one around noticed that my brother needed help. I started shouting, but no one could hear me over all the noise around. Matthew had been underwater for a long time already. So without a second thought, I took a step forward and jumped down. I wasn't afraid at all. All I wanted was to save my brother. When I pulled him out of the water, his friends immediately ran up to us. They helped me, and we quickly got Matthew to wake up. Then people started applauding and saying that I had done a very brave thing and saved my brother. I couldn't believe I'd done it. But then I realized that I had conquered my fears, and that was very pleasant. The next day, I became the star of our school. Someone had filmed my heroic act on a smartphone, and I quickly became popular. Reporters came to interview me, just like they had come to my brother in the past, and I felt happy. It turned out that being brave was very cool. I decided that I would eventually manage to overcome my other fears as well. The most important thing was that I had taken the first step. When I came home after school, my parents congratulated me as well. My mom said that she was very proud of me and happy that she had such a brave daughter. And then, when I was alone in my room, Matthew came up to me and asked me to forgive him. "Molly, I know I haven't been treating you well," said my brother. I smiled and said I wasn't mad at him at all. He was still my cool big brother. That's how I overcame my fears and made Matthew treat me well once again. How do you like my story? Write in the comments down below if you're still struggling with your fears and whether your loved ones support you.